digital transformation pay for itself. People, we go back to the old world of, how do you pay for all the investment you want to do?
Business cases and all that stuff.
Business case, so to speak, out there. Obviously, in the survival world, the business case is very simple. I have to get my business running, and so I will do what it takes in some sense of the word. And there, the business case sometimes is just about survival. But leaving aside those extremities, I think you need to really have similar principles get applied to this. If there is an opportunity, what is the size of the opportunity you can create? And there, I think we are in some bit of trouble, because sometimes we can either overestimate the opportunity. And when I say overestimate the opportunity, I don't mean overstate the opportunity in terms of only its size. Sometimes you can overstate it in terms of the time required to achieve that size. Indeed, let's say grocery retail. Everybody knows it will be big one day with digital technology. Okay. However, the amount of time taken to require to change the consumer to adopt that mode of means could be very, very different than what one perceived when one began that business or began that mode of work. And so obviously, we are entering a new equation, which is time to take change. And I think anybody that can estimate that reasonably well, or can create mechanisms to, we said it, embed your product or service with an ability to propel the consumer to change. So if you've got an instigator in that product itself that allows you to make it change, then life becomes a lot easier for you in terms of that. So I think all the traditional equations apply, that you need to look at efficiency, you need to look at how much you will invest and what you will create. But I think the critical ingredient is time to change. In the so-called physical world where we looked at IT changes, the company, since it was acting in a time, in a sort of more bound manner, was able to estimate this time for change much easier.
More predictable.
Yeah. In this world, it's a little bit difficult. And there are obviously visionaries who will be discounted till they actually are able to prove their change. And then there'll be others who probably think they've hit upon some things very simply, but don't understand the true magnitude of change in some sense of the word. That will really grow into something else out there. So I think we should also try to build expertise as companies on figuring out how quickly can this technology impact us. Not only how much, but how quickly. And that's probably going to be the secret sauce, in my word, for companies that will be profoundly successful out there. If you can figure out, one, to estimate it and figure out what it takes to make, how you could get that time actually to happen, I think you will hit pay dirt, because now you can manage your investments much better to match the time required for change out there, which, if you don't do well, can either create a lag effect, or maybe you undershoot what you were wanting to create.
That's brilliant, Manish. That's a very nice insight. I'm leading to one of the questions that some of our community CXOs have put in. So there is Igor Ricalo, who's the CEO of O9 Solutions. So he's asked this question, somewhat related to what you just said. A lot of companies are still marketing driven and not market driven. So what internal capabilities are needed to become truly market driven? So what is it?
So I think if you want to be, when you say that you want to be market driven, you could further drill down to two different types of companies. Ones that look at opportunities in an existing market, and others that go create markets. Okay, so obviously, even within those companies or people who look at market driven, I think you need to distinguish between these two companies or these two types of teams in some sense of the word. I think the first ingredient for this is companies that that are people that have true domain expertise of the kind of consumers that they're trying to service. I think if you are a market driven company in some sense of the word, then you will have to have some visionary, some visioning or visionary capability within the team in that sense of the word. And I don't think you can have it as a single person or single capability. Maybe a few people are like that, where they can envision multidisciplinary impact into a single sort of mind out there. But in most cases, I may be able to only think about the process to manufacture. Somebody else can think about the ingredients that I'm going to make the product with. Some third person will say, how will I market this new product in this new sort of market that we've got? So a multidisciplinary approach is going to be very critical for a market-driven organization. Traditional organizations which are sales or marketing led, always think about it that, okay, whatever your salesman is saying, that's what I do. And to some people, selling to the salesmen of the company, whether they are the salespeople or the distributors, becomes an endpoint itself. But for market driven companies, I think keeping the customer at the focus of the product becomes, I think, the first thing that they do. Knowledge of what the customer wants or what I can deliver to the customer is the next thing that these companies do. And to be able to be sort of that visionary company, you need to have a set of people who can operate in a multidisciplinary approach. But more importantly, they can do it in an iterative, in an almost like a revolutionary manner on a day-to-day basis. I won't, evolution is a wrong word. Evolution means very long development cycle, but kind of do it rapidly. That I think is going to be set of companies that will become market driven in some sense. And I think there are many. There are going to be category creators at that. And to some degree, there will be value creators for their investors and their shareholders out there, because they will put forward new products and services that people have not even imagined today.
There is an interesting question from Mukesh Kriplani, the CEO at Parekh Plast India Limited. So he's asking that how can the MSMEs embark on a digital journey and plan ahead? I mean, not even the SMEs, but the MSMEs. What can they do?
So I would say that I think all of the conversation that we had out there is, I think, goes back to that principle. Look, if you're asking the question, how can I embark? It's probably the wrong question. The question is, I have to embark. I know here are my customers. Here are my existing products. Here is my existing process out there. If I were to look at where is it that I can create the maximum value by changing some things, is what I start with on that digital journey in some sense of it. So if you think that maybe the product itself needs to be changed, or the way the product gets designed with your customer needs to be changed, then obviously, you begin there on your digital journey and you make the investment backwards in some sense of the word. And that's what you do. If you think that no new product will be changed, then you figure out, can I get the product to that person faster, cheaper, better? And what does it take in my process to make it more digital that allows me to do that? So you kind of close your doors backwards rather than doing it forwards in some sense of the word, if you want to begin on the digital journey, because hopefully you have a larger opportunity bucket upfront created so that you can sort of justify the change that you are going to create, or justify the investment you need to put. In a mid-sized to small organization, just automation is going to be very difficult to justify the business case for that, because you still have a relatively populous nation, and being able to showcase that I can deliver efficiency which is greater is going to be that much harder to make a business case. Whereas if you say that I'm going to fundamentally transform my relationship with my customer, and that is propelling to make all these changes, becomes a lot easier, because Maybe the customer will give you more business, you'll be able to sell more to them, or better still, you are able to sell a product and service to them in a very different manner that creates a different engagement level with the customer.
Next question is from Arjun Verma, Global Director at Beiersdorf. So he asks that how do you drive supply chain resilience through digitization?
That is relatively much easier microcosm. So let's say if you've moved your cobwebs out of the opportunity you've got, and you've got let's say manufacturing company that is making products and services, and you want to make it far more digital. That's a far easier business case in that sense of the word in the overall context, because you got so many examples of documented improvements. Take for example better warehousing, better logistics, leading to an overall improvement in your capacity to handle products, in terms of incoming demand to how you can service them. All of that can be put onto a single platform, and technology capability is there to be able to do that out there. There are just so many examples that you can pick and choose that mirror the context of your business and your supply chain, that can help you make the kind of investments you want to make. So I'm saying it's a fairly discovered process across many chains you've got. From different customers, you can almost borrow the best nest practices they've followed and create your own sort of best practice or next practice that you want to invest in for digital technology. So I mean, yeah, crassly put, you could copy, but better still, you need not copy the entire thing. You could copy micro processes from the best in class in each of those micro processes, and then stitch it together. That is the beauty of that digital technology in that sense of the word. And I'm sure it will make yourself more efficient. But if you have done it correctly and sort of structured it well, you should be able to be more resilient too. Where do you begin? Again, I would say begin at the end of the pipe. Look at your customer. How would they want the product and service? In what time do they want it? What are the inventory ingredients? When do they want it? Or how do they want it? Figure out, is there a efficiency model there? If I have to make that efficiency model happen, what do I need to change? If I want to deliver the product faster, I'll change my logistics processes. If that logistic process has to run well, then I can look at my manufacturing process and need to embed technology into it to make it more repeatable. The minute it is more repeatable, it will definitely be more scalable in some sense of the word. And then backwards, what are the kind of people I need and capabilities I need to be able to run this sort of organization? So I embed or the skills within my team to be able to do that. I think that's how I would do it backwards. Again, most people will tell me that, oh Manish, ये तो बहुत बड़ा process लगता है, 6 महीना लगेगा. Not necessarily. Yeah, maybe execution might take 6 months, but planning, if you had the right number of 4 or 5 key people within the company that understand this process, you should be able to arrive at a working model on what kind of examples you want to borrow from within maybe 2 days of a workshop. Maybe it takes you 2 weeks to distill those examples and what is good about those examples. And maybe it takes 2 more weeks for you to figure out, how can I stitch this all together? Execution, I'm sure, will take much longer and will be dependent on the capabilities of your company. But it should not be too difficult to plan some change out within about 8 weeks or so from. And I'm talking of large scale change. I'm not even talking of very small change in that sense.
The last set of questions that have come from Arun Kumar, managing partner of Asima Consults LLP. So he's asked a lot of questions, 3-4 questions, but they're, I mean, couple of them are high level, couple of them are, more specific. So one question which I'll start with that, an interesting question. He says most of the born or native digital companies are actively working to become what he calls phygital, which is physical digital. while relatively very few brick and mortar companies are actively working on leveraging digital. So, given this, he's asking, what is your take on the business landscape in the next 5 to 10 years? This is a bit of a strategic question. What's happening? What's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
No, so I would say that I mean, you call it phygital, which is one form, or you call it digital. This is digital and physical. You make it digital. So I don't know which of these acronyms is going to become more popular. None of them sound very nice. So you have to think of a new one to make it more popular. But I think how do you put it? If you are a company that is only going to look at the digital process out there, then your ability to impact the physical world is going to be limited. And if you're a traditional company that only looks at physical, then your pace at which you can impact will become challenged. So I think when you look at the new world, you're going to have to be more agile, at the same time make a larger impact, or be more scalable. If you or grow faster, that's what you want to do. If you want to do both of these, it's only possible if you're going to be able to put these together. So I would say a fusion is definitely is definitely necessary. But the danger is not in the fact that you are going to be physical or digital. The sort of the devil lies in the detail. How are you going to achieve this equilibrium, so to speak, for each of the kind of use cases or business cases you got? So I would say that for every business that is digital, you have to think about the physical assets you will put on ground, or the physical touch points you will service uh, relatively critically, because that knowledge of the customer is going to be critical to make sure that that interface that you're investing in is indeed going to be uh, fruitful, so to speak, in that sense of the word, or delivers the kind of extension you're thinking of your digital process out there. Um, Again, take for example Lenskart. Till about 3 years back, they had very few stores, almost few stores to showcase their capability into eyewear. Whereas in the last few years, they've gone on a binge of putting on physical outlets, simply because they realized that the vast population that they wanted to service in India was not used to coming to online channels in that sense of the word, and waiting for them for that change to happen, since they were a relatively smaller player, would mean waiting for a long period of time. Whereas they went and imagined the next revolution of what retail engagement would be all about with technology, and created a new set of stores, though physical in nature, but powered by digital technology there, where the customer experience on the store was enhanced by the scope of digital technology. And that's what created a set of new stores out there, and obviously gave them an opportunity to grow much faster in that sense of the word. So I think every business that is a physical business can think the other way around. If I have my physical presence out there, how can I make it more effective with digital technology in the store, outside the store, and obviously in terms of delivery, in terms of execution of those transactions. But I think the most sort of important aspect of all this is, how do I make sure that there are, for any of these journeys, the biggest thing would be you do not drop a customer. So if you're an all digital company and your wonderfully all digital process is completely interlinked, but the minute the customer went to the physical store, that digital process breaks down, which means their experience at that customer store cannot be captured onto your digital process. I think you will have an extreme amount of dissonance, because the customers have come to expect that integration across your products out there, and they are unwilling or unrelentless in that physical thing. On the other hand, if a physical company is able to embed digital into its process and be able to deliver the seamless journey, they will produce customer delight of some sorts in that sense of the word, because the customer had expected a little bit of a handoff. If you manage those handoffs well as a traditional company, you create greater delight amongst your customers. So it's the classic case of half full or half empty in some sense of the word. So the physical companies that can embed digital to make sure that each and every digital and physical touch point is in sync have a phenomenal amount of capability to deliver customer delight, and vice versa. If the digital companies can deliver this, they will be treated well. But if they fail, they will have large amount of dissonance. I think you got to look at this as an opportunity of failure or opportunity of success and do that integration well. But I think remember to integrate it well, because the biggest mistake digital companies can make is that they underinvest in the physical assets that they have got and don't think about technologically innovating around them. Then they will be considered passe or not in sync with who they are, and vice versa. If the physical guys do not adopt technology fast enough, they may have the misfortune of being disrupted by some of these digital companies who can produce physical processes that can work.
So Manish, last question for the day. Thank you. It's been an absolute brilliant, experience just listening to you. And last question for the day, again from Arun Kumar. What's your take on digital platformation strategy for enterprises? So another jargon that's making the rounds. Digital platformation strategy. What's your take on that?
I haven't heard that one. Must admit that maybe my jargon is a little bit weak, but I'm trying to understand what he's trying to ask. Is are you going to just like you had a traditional company investing in their partners, vendors, manufacturing assets, and all of these things to create it somewhat of a platform? I'm assuming that what is the sort of replica in the digital world that they will create to make sure that these assets or new assets get created, which are all digital. I look at it like that. So that simile is how I look at digital platformization. You have a traditional ecosystem that you have put together. You are going to put a new ecosystem together, which is encompassing not only the traditional guys in your ecosystem, but also the digital elements that are sort of being interwoven across those traditional elements in some sense of it. And that becomes like a new digital platform out there. I would say when you will companies do this premeditatively? I think to begin with, they will do this opportunistically. Wherever there is greatest opportunity of impact, they will do it. If they do it successfully in multiple places, is when they will get some of the footings of the digital platform, and then they will build other assets around it. I think if somebody, I maybe my view take is that you can't really envision a platform and then go ahead and put in sort of all the things. Maybe somebody doing it 4 years from today might be able to do it that way, because then you would have enough templates to be able to envision the platform, because there'll be enough people who would have gone and built it, and then you can sort of replicate those models as they apply to you or change them as they apply to you. But today is the world of creators, or so-called the digital disruptors in some sense of the word, and most of those guys think about this as disruptions that they create, which happen to become platforms out there, is what I think would be there. Maybe there are a few gurus in the world who can think maybe 5 or 10 years ahead. And obviously there will be people like that. I mean, they are the leading visionaries, so to speak, out there, uh, who may be architecting the companies that they lead or the companies they work for in that manner. But I would say those would be far and few in between. Most people would look at this digital platformization as opportunistic. And then, having done a few, then they will really think about the platforms that they will build on. And that's where I think, Siddharth, going back to the question, it's who you partner with that matters. Because if you've done the right 3 or 4 partners out there, you'll be able to fill in the gaps much easier than if you chose the wrong partners to build your digital opportunities on.
Thank you again, Manish. This has been an absolute brilliant journey. I mean, over the last whatever 1.5 hours plus that we have spent, It has been very enriching. I mean, I've got a whole broad array of topics covered, from very high strategic topics down to tactical technology, people, processes, all aspects.
But I
Very,
think that the one critical thing in all of this is execution.
yes,
I think much of this is people within the companies understanding their people and figuring out how to make that change happen and how to work with the partners to make that change happen in case they're putting in new technology. I mean, that is really the crux of it. So I think it's not about will you do it. I mean, that question is passe. It's question of what, when, and in what manner you will do it. That really is the key to it. And again, I would leave everything, the last few points as please experiment early. Maybe it's easy to fail early because you can really do it in small means, uh, and then you can rapidly learn and scale after that. In some sense of the word, uh, I think if you don't experiment, wait for that perfect answer. Those are really the problems of this digital world, in some sense of the word, out there. So beware of that, and happy, I think, hunting, so to speak, out there.
thank you. Thank you, Manish. This has been awesome. Thanks a ton for your time and for your fantastic inputs. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Siddharth.